back to Real Life. I'm Sarah Bernard, and this show is all about buying, selling, and owning real estate, one of my very favorite topics. I'm a realtor myself and also a TV host. And home, being at home, growing up in a home, designing a home, these are some of my very favorite topics. But behind the emotional part of that word is a business, and most of us will be involved in it one way or another at some point in our lives. I created this show so we could help you learn the ins and outs of buying and selling homes, financing them, staging them, and so much more about real estate. Stay tuned for our latest episode of Real Life with Sarah Bernard. We are back, and once again I have one of my favorite people in the real estate business with me today. You've met her before, Andrea Lenzen, owner of Design to Sell, one of the leading experts in the United States on preparing your home so you can sell it quickly and at the highest price possible. Welcome back, Andrea.
Thank you, Sarah. Fun to be here.
I am so glad you're here.
Me
We're
too.
Back on the set of Real Life. It's been a while, and I'm so glad to see you. So one of the things that I hear a lot from people is, why do I need staging, and how do I pick a stager? So I think well, let's talk about that. So you're looking to sell your home and you don't even know where to start, right? You're going to talk to your realtor, and your realtor might have suggestions, but as a homeowner, what kind of stager or stylist do we need, and how do we begin to find one?
That's such a great question. It's so important too, especially for the homeowner, to really understand what they need to do and do their due diligence when looking for a stager. So say, for instance, if their home is vacant, there's a different way of approaching that if the house is occupied. So say if the house is going to be vacant.
So wait, let's go back for a minute. So you say your home is occupied. So that means you're living in
your
the home that you want to sell.
While it's going to be on the market.
Versus you've already moved out. Or it's a property that you own, maybe it's an investment property, and there's nothing in it. So vacant means there's no furniture or there's no people?
There's no furniture and there's no people. It's completely vacant.
Totally empty house versus a home that already has furniture in it.
Exactly. Because I think the confusing part when you say staging, people just assume that the house is vacant. So that's why I wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit. So say, for instance, if the sellers are going to be living in their home while it's on the market. Okay, so they need to do their due diligence in looking for the proper stager that's going to help them. Preferably it would be somebody that just focuses in on occupied homes.
So a stager that specializes in homes that you're already living in.
Correct.
Which is different from the stager that stages empty homes. Okay, I just want to make sure we're really crystal clear. Okay.
Because if it's empty home, then they have a warehouse full of furniture. If it's an occupied home, the stager might have a small warehouse of accessories. So if it's an occupied home, the stager's not bringing in basically furniture.
So you're living in your home and you've got your furniture, your artwork, your lamps and that kind of thing, but the stager might come in and say, I like these pieces and how they're arranged, but we might bring in some different things to make it more contemporary or more appealing to buyers. Is that right?
Yeah, and thinking about the demographics also. You know, if they have things that are more antique-ish, but it's like a new neighborhood coming in of younger people, then we want to accessorize the home to appeal to that particular buyer. So when they're looking for a stager, they want to, number one, go on their website. And when they talk to them, make sure that those are their pictures, not just stock photos.
So our viewers, if they're going to stage their home, they first start with the internet.
Go with the internet. That's where everybody starts, the internet. Google and see stagers. And so go and look at that. And then I would give them a call, number one, and talk to them First of all, see how long they've been in business, how many homes have they staged a year, type of thing. Do they have any kind of certification whatsoever? Which is interesting opposed to real estate. You don't have to be certified to be a home stager.
Okay.
But there's a lot of certifications you can get. So I would check with them and see, you know, where have you attended? What kind of organizations are you affiliated with? Is this a full-time position for you, or is this a hobby? I mean, there's a lot of people thinking, oh, this could be fun to get into staging.
And why is that important? So if I'm going to hire a stager, if they're full-time or not full-time, what is the difference
Because
there?
full-time, they've made a commitment. This is their career. Part-time, this could be a hobby for them.
And they might be more experienced and that
Definitely.
kind of thing. Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to touch on something you said a moment ago, and that's about thinking about the demographic of the buyer for your home. So that's where a stager. So if I'm 60 years old and my neighborhood has turned and the buyers coming in are 25, 30, young families, let's say, the way I've decorated my home may not be appealing to that generation, that demographic. So that's where a stager could really help.
Absolutely, and that actually happened to me once where there was a house and it was very outdated, a lot of antique type furniture, and it was really a subdivision of young people moving in. So the best recommendation I could make to them, because I couldn't bring in the proper accessories, it really needed a complete makeover, is that I told them to completely move out, paint, and then have a stager come in who does vacant staging, has their own furniture to bring in.
And that probably seems overwhelming to a seller, the thought of moving out of a house, going to temporary housing, a hotel, or wherever, stay with friends, but it might really make the difference on getting a higher price for the home, so it all makes up in the long run.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today.
You're
Andrea,
welcome.
you heard what Andrea had to say, and I hope you got some great notes. We're going to home staging in action at the end of the show, so be sure to stay tuned. Up next, we've got a fantastic guest who's going to talk to us about something that might be a mystery to you if you've ever bought or sold real estate. Stay tuned for the Inside Scoop. Our next guest is one of the best in the business. John Banjak is a real estate attorney who is also a principal in a title company. He also loves yoga and fitness and is an all-around great guy. Welcome, John, to our real life studio. We're so glad you're here today.
Yeah.
So you've got a long background in the real estate world, but came in through the legal aspect, the legal side of it. And but let's talk about title. What is a title company? What does a title company do?
Yeah, I don't think many people set out as an attorney to become a title attorney. You kind of just stumble into it, start in the real estate world as a private attorney and found my way into the title business, and I've been in it for a long time now. And yeah, the general consumer, you know, even if you're looking for to buy a house or sell a house, really they don't know much about a title company. It's kind of a nebulous concept.
And they usually don't see the title company until closing.
Right, so when you think of a title company, if you can recollect a title company having purchased or sold a house, you're going to remember just being at the closing table, and it's going to probably be a real fleeting memory.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a nervous, strenuous time, and you pass through a title company, you sign all the documents, and then you move on to other things. So kind of out of sight, out of mind. And it's really real estate professionals that we interact on a regular basis to become familiar with the title insuring and the title closing process. And again, unless you're buying and selling real estate on a regular basis, you're not going to become that schooled at it,
right.
per se.
Yeah, and so the buyer or seller, they come to the closing table, they meet their closer who works for the title company, but prior to that date, that title company has been doing lots and lots of work to prepare for that closing. So what are some of the things that the title company does to prepare?
Yeah, the title business is sort of broken into two components. One component is researching the title, researching the history of the title.
The title is the title on the house that someone's buying or selling.
The ownership history of the property to make sure, really to make sure that the current purported seller is the actual owner of the property.
Okay.
And sometimes they don't align. Sometimes whoever thinks they own the property really doesn't technically, or there's some sort of deficiency, and we have to identify that early in the process and then correct it.
So okay, I'm going to stop you right there. What would be an example of a deficiency? They find out it's not really the actual owner who they thought.
Yeah, there are various examples. One of which is two non-married individuals own a piece of property, and they believe that they own it as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. So if one of them were to pass away, then the other would automatically take title. When we research the title, we find out that they own it as tenants in common, meaning a 50-50 component, because there was some sort of mistake in the way it was titled, and therefore the 50% interest of the person who has passed away will have to be probated, or we'll have to find other workarounds. That's just one example.
So it might be their descendants, their heirs who own that half of the property, and so they have to be contacted.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. And then maybe some a little more simple and not as tricky to cure might be someone who thinks they own it in their individual capacity, but they actually own it in a trust.
Okay.
So we have to identify that and then provide the guidelines or the steps to get to the closing table with the right person.
And people forget, because you may have owned a property for 20, 30, 40 years, and you forget how it was titled when you purchased it. So the title company helps to do all that discovery work.
Right. We checked it to make sure that the title's passed from prior owner to prior owner in an appropriate and fully legal way. And then just to take a quick diversion, title insurance is often driven by the lender side of the transaction. Lenders demand that there be title insurance, and lenders ultimately want, when you go to the closing table and they close the loan, they now will have a mortgage lien against the property. They want to make sure that their mortgage lien is in first position, and there are no other liens that are on the title. And you can own your property, like you said, Sarah, for 20, 30 years and not realize that there might be some sort of lien on there. Maybe it's not a valid lien or something that's real active, but it had never been released. Okay. And we identify that and cure that.
Okay, so you find those possible liens and then go seek to get those liens taken care of before closing or at closing.
Right, we prepare what's called a title commitment, and that's going to become the instructions to our closing officers and or the other parties in the transaction. You know, you as an agent will get a copy of that title commitment, and our closers will work with your people to go through it, and it becomes like a checklist that needs to be satisfied in order to get the deal fully closed into the closing table. And it's going to identify things like liens that have to be paid off, and it's going to identify all existing mortgages. Sometimes someone might have something like a tax lien against their property. That will be identified on there, and then we'll need to get a payoff from the IRS in order to get that satisfied, in order to get that closed.
So this is just normal day-to-day stuff for you and your team.
Yeah, every day that we get real estate contracts come in and initiate the order, unless it's a refinance order that comes directly from a lender on a refinance transaction, but otherwise it's the contract that put the ball in motion. And again, the first part of the process, it works its way through our title research department to prepare the title commitment. And then once that's prepared, it switches over to the escrow or the closing side, and they start working up the file toward the closing. And that's where you as an agent and others are more accustomed to the interaction. So
does a buyer or seller have to worry about this title work that's being done in the background typically?
Well, yes. Again, like I said, the lender's going to be scrutinizing. Lenders have to have it, and it has to meet certain protocol. Buyers, at least on the residential side and the consumer side, aren't going to know a whole lot about it. So that's why it's important that you rely on and become very, very dedicated to a real estate agent who's going to guide you through that process, and then a real estate agent that knows who to contact at the title company to explain any kind of nuances that come up. So one of the things we deal with a lot are things like surveys. Where someone gets a survey of the property, and we as the title company are going to review that survey and then try to take exception to any discrepancies, like if the fences don't line up, or if the neighbor has a shed or a garage built over the property. The title company is going to identify that, take an exception to it, and then the buyer is now in a position of trying to study what's the relevance of that, and then to work with the title company buying through the introduction by his or her agent to get that resolved.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff that's going on, and important stuff in the background during a real estate transaction by the title company. You're there to protect the buyer and the seller and make sure everything goes smoothly, and that when that transaction takes place, it's all good. All right, John, thank you so much for being with us today to explain the nuances behind title work and title companies. It's a mystery, as I said at the beginning. So thanks to John for being with us today. And my next guest is a successful realtor who has a lot to tell us about buying and selling homes from her own personal experience. Stay tuned to hear all about the woes, excitement, and details that you'll definitely want to know. You probably think that if you're a realtor selling your own home or buying a new one would be smooth as molasses. Not so. Realtors go through the same experience as you. I'm going to have you meet Julie Kirby, who's a realtor from St. Louis, Missouri. And Julie, you just went through, you're an experienced realtor. You do a lot of second homes and luxury homes, and you've been doing it for quite a long time. Yet you just sold a home and bought a home during Christmas season.
Christmas season with the baby, I mean,
yes,
all the things.
So, but you know real estate, and what was it like? Did knowing real estate and working in that industry make it easier in some ways, or did it make it harder, or did it have nothing to do with it?
Well, I think I realized that I'm human, and I am just like everybody else who's going through the process of buying and selling a home. Even though I do it all the time, I didn't stop and think about the emotional experience that I would go through.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. And it's kind of like a surgeon who is perfect in their craft, yet when they are on the operating room table, it's a totally different experience, right?
Absolutely. I had to pull away a little bit and have some experts come in and help me because I no longer was wearing that expert hat. I literally became the nightmare buyer seller that we all hear about. I was that person.
Well, I'm in the real estate world, and they're not all nightmares.
That's good. Well, I was one.
So what was the emotional part for you that was difficult?
The part that people didn't want to buy my home.
Okay.
You know, I thought
people walking through your home, your beautiful home that you loved and obviously took very good care of, and yet some people rejected it.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought my home was well taken care of until somebody said it was dirty. And then I looked and they were right. I mean, it was shocking to see. You know, I have help cleaning, and we had done special cleans to get the house ready. And there were parts that I really needed to stop and get out of my goggles and see that it needed some love.
So you, just like a regular person, you lived in your own home, just like with your family, like we all do. Yet when people walk through your home and they're thinking about buying it, they're looking at it through a different lens.
Absolutely.
And that was something that you didn't expect.
Absolutely. I thought that I was able to see things because I am an agent with that lens of an agent, and really I was just the homeowner through this process.
What were some things that you learned about selling?
So, you know, hindsight's 20/20. If I could do it differently, I would have truly staged my home from the beginning instead of thinking, oh, my stuff's great.
So what we were talking about
Yes.
in another episode with Andrea Lenzen from Design to Sell is exactly what she was talking about, that we look at our homes because I mean it's our stuff. We love the things in our home.
Clearly loved my stuff.
But it may not be what buyers want to see, help them
Yes.
visualize living in the home.
And how important it is to really separate my items and really think of it as more of a business transaction, and that I really need to take these pieces and create a property that somebody else will love. It's not for us to love anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard thing to separate, is that it wasn't ours anymore.
Yeah.
So the moment that we came through that process of putting it on the market, it was to get it ready for somebody else.
And you were living in the home with 4 children, including a newborn. What was
Yes.
that like for the kids?
I would say they were really emotional about it. Probably
more than
it
you
was,
thought.
Yes, and probably it was harder on them than I realized. That we should have moved out of the home and gotten them settled in their new place and then gone through the process of getting it ready, because they didn't have a chance to detach. Instead, it became like, get your room clean. You can't leave stuff here. Like, they couldn't live in their home.
Yeah.
They were.
So you would recommend, if possible, it's not possible for everybody,
isn't.
but to, if you can, to move out.
Right, and I think I thought it wasn't possible for us, but really speaking to a lender, I should have done that way ahead of time. But again, I thought, oh, I've got this. I'm an agent. I know what I'm doing. But there are so many different options, and having a team, a great lender, a great stager, a great agent can pull everything together.
Yeah. So from the perspective, you also had already identified a home to purchase. So you were waiting to close on that house. What was the home buying experience for you, and how was that different from what you expected? Again, from the lens of a realtor and now a home buyer.
Yeah.
Was it what you expected?
That's an interesting question. I've thought more about the sale piece instead of the buying piece. The sale piece was more emotional. The buying piece is more fun, right? Like, we're all excited to get into this new place and to do all these new things. And so that part wasn't as hard as listing. There were still some things that, become a little bit more emotional, and trying to think about it objectively and knowing that it's all going to work out, and there are all these steps that you have to go through.
Yeah. So it's the whole experience sounds like it was stressful, and I think that's something people don't realize. When it's fun and exciting to go home shopping, to think about selling, moving into someplace new. And it is, but there's still a lot that goes on, and it is one of the top 3 stressors in life, right? Moving your house and moving your family. Julie, thank you so much. It's so great to hear. Everyone has, a lot of people are thinking about buying or selling, but to hear from the real life example of someone who just recently went through it, and on top of that, knows the world of real estate inside and out. It's super interesting. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
Stay with us, because we're going now into a house that's getting ready to go on the market. We'll see the real action behind the prep work with the staging experts. I'm Sarah Bernard with Real Life. Welcome back to Real Life. We are now on location at a real house that is going to go on the market. So we're going to bring you with us, and Andrea is going to use her expertise in staging a home for sale. So we're going to take a look at how the house is right now, how these sellers actually live in the house, just like all of us live in our house, and it's a little bit different sometimes than how we prepare our house for the marketplace. So you're going to join us and you're going to see staging in real life in action. Okay, we're walking into the master bedroom, and this is really a main feature of any house because buyers are always thinking about their personal space when they buy a home, especially if they have children or other family members living with them. This is a great bedroom because it opens out to the deck, which overlooks the woods. So we want to capture that, but we want to work with the furniture they have, but make it look more appealing to buyers.
Exactly.
And so what do you think, just briefly, when you walk in here?
Briefly, we walk in, we're going to take down the personal photos, bring in some different artwork, bring in some matching lamps, kind of jazz up the dresser a little bit, and then change it to like a white bedspread with some decorative type pillows.
Okay, perfect. So let's get to work and we're going to see how you do this.
Okay, let's do it. Sarah, come on in. We're all done. I hope you love it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is a huge transformation. Wow, I love it. It's light and bright. Tell me about the white.
The white, see, it makes such a difference because it's transitional looking, it's clean looking, it makes the room look more open.
And it goes with everything that she's got, all her colors. She's got some beige, some gray.
But doesn't her furniture even look different now? With just the added accessories and the lamps.
Like the same space. But
Exactly.
This is a pretty easy transformation. I mean, it looks like a lot, but, and I know it was hard work for you.
That's okay.
So just pillows, fresh bed coverings, some new lamps, some accessories, some artwork. Got rid of anything that was personal to the seller, and it's more neutral for a buyer. So you walk in here and it's a wow, and you're immediately drawn to the room, but also just the outside and all this whole space is
it's more like a retreat. Yeah, it's like a retreat.
Exactly. I love it.
I do too.
Okay, great job.
Yeah,
Andrea.
worked out great.
Love it. Okay. So we're going to, on our next episode, we're going to show another room of this house. We're going to continue the transformation. So stick with us and we'll see you next time.